All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Papillion La Vista Community Schools Board of Education meeting here December 9th, 2024. We will start with Section 1, call to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Lotus.
Here.
Mr. Madler.
Here.
Ms. Fisher.
Here.
Ms. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Here.
Ms. Wood.
Here.
All present. Oh, wait. Yes, all present.
Thank you. I'd like to note that we have the open meetings law posted at the entrance to the room. Moving on to Section 2, communications. We have student council here tonight for item A from Papillion La Vista South High School. So welcome. We have Mackenzie and Abigail. Welcome.
Welcome, ladies.
I'm Kinsey, and I'm your City Council. Thank you guys for having us here tonight. We just got done, or we're almost done with our first semester. It's been pretty busy. Finals are coming up next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then we hope you are able to enjoy some time off and enjoy the holiday season with your families this break. And so the second semester is full of activities and stuff. We want to take a moment to highlight a lot of these groups. So we'll start with athletics.
We just concluded a successful fall athletics season, and we featured our state champions in volleyball, metro runners-up in the boys cross country, 2 district champions, 4 district runners-up, 3rd place in band, and 4 team state qualifiers. And for our winter sports that are beginning very soon or have already started prepping, the boys and the girls basketball teams have both recently kicked off their seasons. They're both ranked in the top 5 for Class A. The boys started off 2-0 and the girls are 1-0. Both teams are in action tomorrow night at Millard South. So it's going to be a very fun season and we hope you can make it to some of the games. Boys and girls wrestling are making very good progress at the start of their season. The boys team just started off with a 3rd place team finish at the York Invite this past weekend, and the girls team just had a record number of 25 girls out for the team this year, which is the highest it's ever been. Both teams are at home against Monarchs in a duel tomorrow night. The boys and the girls bowling teams both have strong teams built up this year. We kicked off the season last week against Burke High School. Brennan Heck, who won our Class A state championship last year, is back leading our boys bowling team, and it will be in action again tomorrow at Westside. Next, our swim and dive team, which is combined with the Monarchs, has just started prepping for their season, and they kicked off the season at Lincoln Southeast last Thursday, and then they also did the Millard Quad at Millard South last Saturday. There's an upcoming duel on Tuesday, December 17th versus Central High School, and that's going to be our senior night for Papio South. It's super cool to see these schools compete together, push away the rivalry for a little bit, and they're both working very hard to make this a really great season. Next, our powerlifting boys and girls teams are working very hard in preparation for the upcoming meets and competitive season. We also have big numbers out for both of those teams. The competition season is going to kick off with our home meet on Saturday at our high school, Papillion La Vista South, and we hope they have a good meet.
Yes. And then we want to highlight some of our fine arts programs. We're super proud of our fine arts. So starting off with theater, our theater department just finished up a musical. It was called All Shook Up. I saw it and it was incredible. I don't know if you guys saw it. Yes, it was awesome. It was incredible. We have some very talented people at our school. It was a massive success. I know my night was sold out. I'm sure all the other nights were sold out as well. This has received immense praise from students and staff, deservingly so. And then our Play Pro group, also tied to our theater, has recently competed in the NSAA one-act competition at Lincoln High. And like I said, we are very, very proud of Ms. Dixon and our drama students. Great work, thespians, if you're watching. And then our band, we are also very proud of our band. We are coming off a strong fall where they finished third at the state marching band competition, and they do have a holiday concert tomorrow night if you're interested. They've been working super, super hard, and we're excited to hear a performance this season. And then finally, choir. They have a concert tonight at 7:30, so best of luck to them. If you can keep your meeting short tonight, you might make it. Hopefully. It's a holiday concert, so they'll be singing holiday songs to hopefully a packed gym. And then our show choir competition season is rearing up. I don't think they've had their first competition yet, but they're preparing for that. And all three are working very, very hard in preparation for that.
There's also a lot going on with our clubs, and we just want to highlight a few of them. So our Hope Squad, which is our mental health awareness suicide prevention club, is currently hosting a Toys for Tots drive, and they're hoping to provide a lot of children in need with joy this holiday season through donating newer, gently used toys. And we've received a lot of donations so far, and it just continues to grow, so we're excited for that. Our student council, we have been preparing for our biggest fundraiser of the year for Make-A-Wish Nebraska. Wish Week, which we hold annually, is going to be the week of January 17th, 2025. And we are going to be raising money for a Wish Kid by raffling off items, selling Titan gear, and holding small fundraisers at 2 basketball games in January. Next, our DECA chapter had a great outing at their Top Golf Bonding event, which was all student-led. And it raised money for DECA scholarships and upcoming events for DECA solely. The 2-hour event was very successful. I think the way they did it was they had like a slot, you could sell a ticket, and all the money went to DECA. We have a lot of strong projects in action for DECA, and we're super excited for their spring competitions. Next, our National Honor Society just inducted 75 new juniors and seniors. November 18th was the induction ceremony. We're super proud of this group of students who continue to raise the bar academically and in their clubs.
And then that is all that we have for you guys today. Once again, thank you for allowing us to be here. And thank you for listening, and thank you for the positive impact each and every day one of you make on our school district by serving in your role. We are extremely proud of what has been accomplished at Papio South during first semester, and we are thrilled to see what second semester will bring. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Have a good rest of your first semester, and hope you have a great winter break.
Thank you, you too.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item B, public comment on items not on the agenda. We do have one comment, so I will call the speaker down. You will have 3 minutes for your comment. Before you start your comment, state your name and address. And we have Kathy, 3-minute timer. I don't even know if we've used it since we put it up here. Is it beep still at any amount? It turns the color? Okay. We'll watch it. We'll be learning together with this, but a 3-minute timer.
I'll talk fast.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Joe Leggett. My address is 12610 South 78th Street here in Papillion. And I'll make it quick so you can hopefully make the holiday concert as well. I'm going to do my part, you do yours. I'd like to talk to you about Coach Tim Williams. Tim was let go from his role as football coach at Papillion Monarchs 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And I understand that's a personnel issue. I'm not here to dive into all those things, but I did want to let you know how much of a mistake I think that was. in addition to being a really good football coach, by most standards, a regular season record of 15-5 over the last 2 seasons, made it to the playoffs the last 3 years, won a playoff game this year, which was the first time in I think it was 13 years that had been done at that program. Especially in our metro area, when we played the teams that are relatively known for, I call them the Omaha Metro All-Stars, teams from other high schools that do a really good job of recruiting players from my son's team at the Monarchs and players from Papio South and a variety of other schools around the metropolitan area, and dismissed from what I was told by the principal and the athletic director because they were going to give a different direction with the program. When I see the program is trending to the right, if we're talking about a line graph, the opposite of that would be down. And so the program, I kind of coined this to Principal Ryan and to Dr. Govier as their Frank Solich moment or their Bo Pelini moment. I think that's probably going to do a significant amount of harm to that program for the next several years. I for one, highly doubt that I send any more kids to that school, at least to participate with the football program, if that's how their coach is going to be treated, especially after having quite a successful career there. But in addition to being a great coach, he is a really good guy. He has helped me immensely with my son, not just in football, but just in life and being a good role model and a good influence on him. And so I think he was done an extreme disservice. And I think he's owed an apology. I think he's owed, at least offered his job back, although if I were him, I wouldn't accept it. Because of the way he was treated and because of the way that it was announced and the speculation and innuendo that arise as a result of that. And I'll leave you with this. The person that fired him in front of several hundreds of parents struck a football player on his team, my son's team, in the head on June 6th. And he's still employed, and I have never heard one single thing that's been done about that. So my time is up. I've said my piece. I'd be happy to answer questions. I doubt I'm going to get any, but I'll stick around just in case, and I'll leave you with that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Okay, we are moving on to item C, the superintendent's report. Dr. Rickley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madler, members of the board. Thank you for being here, and for our members of the audience that are with us this evening as well as watching online. Thank you for engaging with your community, your school district, and your Board of Education. I had several items in my superintendent's report pertaining to activities and athletics, but the ladies from South did such an exhaustive list. I'll cut that short. I do want to echo their comments, though, about I hope everyone had a lovely Thanksgiving break with friends, family, had the opportunity to catch up on some much-needed rest and relaxation, and ready for that last push until the end of first semester. A couple other random things before I forget. One, in the personnel report, which will show up shortly, you'll see mention of a new activities director at Papillion La Vista South High School. Longtime AD Jeremy Van Akron is retiring at the end of this school year. Dr. Settles and her team ran an outstanding search process. We had some really good outside candidates, some really good inside candidates, and we settled on an inside candidate, current Assistant Activities Director, Bubba Peñas, who's here with his lovely wife this evening. Bubba, congratulations. We're so proud of you. We know you'll do great things for Titan Activities and Athletics, so thank you for being here. Also wanted to share for any staff that may be watching at home, Dr. Settles and her team oversee the voluntary separation program, and the board will presumably be discussing that at a future board meeting. Dr. Settles jotted me a note that we have 12 teachers that are accessing the program this year with an aggregate 271 years of service. That's incredible. The board policy authorizes up to 15. I don't think we've hit that 15 number in at least 3 years. That's a good problem to have, in that while we know that this program probably saves the district money, at the end of the day, it's about taking care of people that have given a significant amount of their career, if not their entire career, to the Papillion-La Vista Community Schools. So the fact that we have people who are eligible for this program and choose to stay, I think says a lot about the staff we have and the quality of services we provide. So future board agenda will reflect that reality. Also wanted to share with the community and board that we did a new member onboarding last week. Thank you, Ms. Witt, for attending, along with board member-elect Eliza Butler, who is here this evening. Thank you for joining us for the better part of your day, Ms. Butler. Hopefully we didn't leave your head spinning with all of the conversations about budget, teaching and learning, and HR and student services. Also wanted to share one event that didn't come up in the ladies' report that most of Cabinet, I think all of Cabinet actually was there at one point or another. We're down at Papio Bowl last week for District Unified Bowling Championship. So we had Monarchs, we had Titans, we had a couple other school districts that were in our districts, and it's just an amazing event. And if you've been to any unified event, whether it's track and field, whether it's basketball, whether it's bowling, whether it's anything else, to see our kids competing is pretty darn amazing. And the parents, the family members, the friends, the community members that just show up to be supportive, these unified sporting events are absolutely outstanding, and they highlight the best of what our kids in this community has to offer. So congratulations to all of our peers and our athletes that participated. This Wednesday, Mr. Richards and I will be traveling to Lincoln for the Legislative Preview Conference. It doesn't seem possible that we're already talking about the next legislative session, but we are. The next session starts on January 8th of 2025. It is a long session. Any year that ends in an odd year, it's a long session, which means it's 90 days instead of 60 days. So our own Tim Gay is here this evening. He will be helping us keep apprised of the legislative situation as we get a little bit deeper into January. As always, the first 10 days of the session are critical because that is the bill introduction period. In a long session, it's not unusual to see between 600 and 800 bills introduced. Now, we won't be watching all of these, of course, but we'll be paying close attention to those that impact public education, our funding, and other issues. So more to come on that. Also wanted to announce that we've got winter break fast approaching. With Thanksgiving being late this year, we had just 3 weeks basically, and we're back to winter break. Final schedule for both high schools is December 18th, 19th, and 20th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so that's next week already. So it doesn't seem possible, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen. And then the last thing before I turn back over to the board president, tonight we're saying goodbye to a pretty special lady, Valerie Fisher. I'll let other board members weigh in here too, but here's what I know about Val. One of the very longest serving board members in this outstanding school district's history. She started in 1999, took a little bit of a hiatus to spend some time with family. I think when you add up her years of service, she has 22 years of service. 24, thank you, Val. Too many highlights from this lady's career, but I think for me, one of them, and I suspect Val would agree, was in 2019, she received the Ann Mac Tier Award, which is annually given. They give out one per year to the top board member in the state of Nebraska. It is the Heisman Trophy if you are a school board member. Incidentally, I think we're the only public school district in the state that has two, Dr. Fred Tafoya and our own Val Fisher. Val's a friend, she's an ally, she's a supporter. She was part of that original board. Took a chance on me. And for that reason and many, many others, I will be forever grateful for your friendship. I can't tell you how many family members, how many kids, how many teachers, how many people in the community whose lives have been changed either directly or indirectly because of the work that you did, Val. So we're incredibly proud of you, incredibly sad to say goodbye, though we know that our paths will continue to cross and we will always be friends. So with that, I will conclude my superintendent comments.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rickley. Moving on to item D, board reports.
I don't know that I can repeat what Dr. Rickley said, but I want to also thank Ms. Fisher for her mentorship throughout my time as a board member, and I will miss you greatly after today's meeting, although I know we're still friends after this.
Well, before I thank Ms. Fisher, I just wanted to note to the board and to the community on what a cool event it was to go down last Thursday night and watch a couple Titans and a Monarch compete against each other in the NCAA volleyball tournament here at home in Nebraska. So to have two Papillion South grads on the South Dakota team and Nora Sis on the Creighton team, all performed phenomenally. It was just a great level of competition, but to see even the following night on other teams, the talent that this district has and is being represented, not only on the courts, but in the classrooms as well. There was a fantastic article about not only the success Nora Sis is having and has had in her career at Creighton, but doing it as a nursing major. And there are very, very few Division I volleyball players that are going down that path and can juggle that class load of not only what it takes to be a Division I athlete, but also to be that successful and take on such an important program, especially with the nursing shortages that we're experiencing. So just something really cool, and really as a district alumni to be so proud of all the folks that have gone on to bigger and better things, whether on the courts or in the business world or the other professions. It's just it was something cool to be proud of, so that was fun. But I want to echo Ms. Witt's comments as well. Ms. Fisher was instrumental to my onboarding as a board member, and especially as I transitioned into board president during maybe some of the worst times to ever be on a school board, or especially president. And her steadfast leadership and mentorship, and always just being there to provide the right guidance to make sure that we were following our policies and what's necessary as a board member, but to continue to ensure that I was performing at a level and running the board at her high standards. So, Val, it's been a great few years, and as Dr. Wrigley said, I was graduating the year you first came on the board, and I remember coming to a board meeting during your first year, and so it always meant a lot to see that how you've continued to support the community and your passion for this district and our students and staff. It's hard to put in words.
As an administrator, when I first came to the district, and now as I've moved into this role, the thing I appreciate, Val, is how you always put kids first. Your heart is with our kids, and the decisions that you make, they're focused on our kids and what's doing the best for what's the best thing for our kids. And so thank you for your leadership these past few years. Thank you for your service and being a servant leader. And enjoy this time now you got all this extra time. You'll have some fun. So thank you, Val.
All right, I get to say it too. First of all, I don't know who's going to remind everybody to slow down for kids crossing the street now. We're going to have to remember to do that. Maybe I'll try to take on that role. Every fall we have to do that. But I also want to thank you for your mentorship when I took over president right after Brian, and your calming voice, your calming words when there are times you feel like you're going to pull your hair out, and I really appreciate that. Appreciate all the times I was able to ask you questions and have you give me a very logical answer when my emotions were ready to take off and go off. So appreciate it. Thank you for your mentorship. I can't thank you enough. I'm kind of like Brian. I'm not sure quite how to put it into words what you mean, but I think Lisa put it very well. Kids first, always, which is, I think, would describe you accurately. So thank you very much.
You want to go first? I can go. I'll go first, and then you can close it. You can close us out. Then, thank you for the service to the district and the community. Me personally, I know you've made me a better board member. I pride myself on being engaging with administration and asking challenging questions. One of our jobs to the administration on any of the topics that get brought up in this meeting and in our subcommittee meetings. But the number of times that you've either had a line of thinking or questions to Dr. Rickley or other administrators. And I've stopped and I've written down the question that you've asked, and I was mad at myself for not thinking of those questions or that line of thinking because it was just so good. And I wrote it down to remind myself of how to get to that place, to ask those sorts of questions, those deeper levels. So I know, I mean, just being around you for the last 4 years, you've made me a better member. And so the district thanks you, obviously, in the community as a whole. And, you know, I hope that we can continue your legacy on this board from just everything that you've taught us over the years. So thank you.
I just have a couple of words I want to say. I feel very blessed to have been able to serve this community that I love so dearly. As a graduate of the district, my children, other family members, we wouldn't have kept our kids here if we hadn't believed that this was the right place for our children to be educated. It's an absolute honor to have been elected this many times to this board and to serve our students, our staff, and our families. But all of that is not capable of happening without all of these board members here and throughout all the years. I've had phenomenal fellow board members that I could share questions, share thoughts and ideas with through the easy times and through the really tough and challenging times. And I remember the day that I said to some, the hardest thing you'll ever do on this board is boundaries. That changed with COVID. COVID became the hardest thing, and now we're back to boundaries, so y'all have fun with that. Y'all have fun with that. But one of my other absolute pleasures beyond serving with all of my fellow board members who are wonderful people is the administration over the years that has just been so supportive and hasn't kicked me out the door when I've asked that question or made that comment. So I'm so appreciative of that. And then there's the superintendent. One of my greatest privileges, I think, was hiring a new superintendent for this school district, one that we felt would be able to take us into the future and really challenge all of us, whoever sits on this board, to do the right things, to ask those questions, and to move forward. So it was a pleasure to be able to offer that position to Dr. Rickley as one of the last remaining board members. I think I am the last that had that honor of hiring him for the position. And there's no doubt in my mind that we made a wonderful choice for our superintendent, and so glad to see that he's been with us through the great times, the easy times, and the tough, because I think working through the tough times really shows what you're made of, and it shows the strength that you bring to a position. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity. To all of the community who supported me all these years, I can't tell you what it means to know that you all came to the ballot box and elected me for this position that, for me, has been one of the greatest honors of my life.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Okay, we are moving on to item E, committee reports, buildings, grounds, and finance.
Yes, we met last Friday here in the boardroom, discussed many things, primarily going over our financial audit report and topics involved in that, which is on tonight's agenda. We have multiple things on tonight's agenda that we discussed, and then an update on where we were with the next tranche of bonds that we will be, or have submitted, and will be receiving shortly. So,
Thank you. Human resources and student services.
Human Resources and Student Services have been busy with teacher contract negotiations. We continue to do that for the next couple of weeks, and I do want to make a correction to last month's minutes. We did have a meeting, it was over Zoom on November 4th, and that agenda item has not yet appeared on our agenda, so it will be in a future meeting.
Curriculum and Americanism.
We have not met.
Okay, moving on to section 3, action items. Item A, action by consent.
I'll make a motion to approve the action by consent agenda as presented.
We have the motion by Ms. Fisher and a second by Mr. Bailey. Discussion? No? Roll call. Good luck on the mic.
Mr. Madler?
Mr. Madler.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Witt.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Lotus.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, moving on to item B, Superintendent Evaluation 2024-25.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madler, members of the board. At the last meeting, we went through not only the timeline for my evaluation process, we talked a little bit about Mr. Madler sitting down with me and going through the results. I believe Ms. Barranco has shared not only the ratings, but also the subjective comments that the board submitted. If you have any questions about the mid-year progress, I'd happily take those. Otherwise, I'll plan on circling back with the board typically in May and June and talking about kind of a year-end progress report. Here's the progress that's been made. Here's the things that are still yet to be accomplished. But would certainly take any questions that the board may have on that.
And on my side, as we talked about at the last meeting, thank to all the board members for submitting their feedback. I did go over that with him, and all those responses and the answers have been shared out. So with that, the answer to retain Dr. Rickley, we had 6 yeses on that. And then so on, part of this action item is to extend the contract. No other changes to the contract, but just extend it and add on an additional year to it is on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge completion of the superintendent's performance evaluation and to approve the 3-year superintendent's contract for Dr. Andrew Rickley.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? No? Roll call.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Witt.
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Lotus.
Yes.
Mr. Madler.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, moving on to item C, political representative contract. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Madler. Tonight, the administration would recommend to the board that we continue our relationship with Catalyst and Mr. Tim Gay as our political representative down in Lincoln for the 2025 school year, or for the 2025 fiscal year. We have had a good relationship. He's done a great job of working with us through a lot of finance bills, a lot of curriculum bills, a lot of HR bills down in Lincoln. Has been with the district a long time, and is a former senator down in Lincoln himself. Is able to get us in to see senators that normally, a lot of school districts aren't able to. So with that, we recommend that. He's left the price the same for us once again this year. I know since I've been here, he has not raised that price for his services and his company services, so we do appreciate that as well. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
If I may, Mr. Madler, just a couple other things. I've been working with former State Senator Tim Gay in this position for 12 years. I don't know that Tim has ever adjusted his price, $39,000, in case the public doesn't have a board packet in front of them. Deeply grateful for that, Tim. I think another relevant question that members of the community may have is, how does that compare to other school districts have government relations lobbyists? And the answer is virtually all Class A's do, most Class B's, and even some smaller C's do. So it is a prevailing practice. One of the other things that Mr. Richards and I look at each year is what other lobbyists are making around the metro. And I can promise you Mr. Gay's amount that he charges us puts us at a very competitive level compared to some of our peers across the metro and across the state. And going back to Mr. Madler's question, his comment earlier where he says the importance of asking tough questions. And less than a week ago, Mr. Madler said, what kind of value are we getting from this contract, Andy? Is it still worth it? And I went on to describe the many things that Mr. Gay does to represent the district, both in the school district and in Lincoln in the unicameral. So it would be my recommendation that we continue this. He's done outstanding work. He's a district resident and his kids are graduates, and I just feel really strongly about the work that he does. Sorry to add that on, just feel pretty strongly about this, Mr. Madler.
Thank you, Dr. Rickley.
I'll make the motion to approve Catalyst Public Affairs as the district's political representation at a yearly rate of $39,000 plus expenses from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, we had the motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Witt. Any discussion, questions?
I would also like to express the value that a district gets from having someone at the legislature who is advocating on their behalf. There are so many bills that go through the legislature that can do harm to a district, can do harm to curriculum, can do harm to business services and finances, that if we don't have a voice there on a regular basis, we could suffer from some of those changes that occur without. And it may not be the fault of the legislatures, it's an education issue, and I think Mr. Gay does a great job of educating our legislatures so that the bills that they do present have something behind them that helps them to make those decisions. So, thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for asking that question, because I was going to ask the same one. Are we getting the value? And I do appreciate Mr. Gay and everything he does. I also work with him on the foundation board, and so I know the value he brings and the respect he has for this community. So I do appreciate it, and very glad we're going to retain him another year to help us. Thank you.
No, I'd just like to add that, I mean, the amount of bills, the amount of time that's spent, I would rush from a cost-benefit standpoint to have somebody who's, one, has the background of a former state senator, but also, you know, lives and breathes and does this all day, every day. I'd rather have a consultant, a specialist do this than have our administrators spending a majority of their time during the session down trying to educate state senators versus trying to make sure that our students are being educated at the high level that we have. So from that standpoint, I think it provides great value, and as Ms. Witt said, Mr. Gay provides us with so much information to make sure that we're focused on the right things that could have positive or negative impact to the district. And as many of us around the table would love to spend more time down in Lincoln, most of us don't have that additional time to go down there on a daily basis to sit through hearings, to potentially testify. So I'm very grateful for our relationship and continued support.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Gay.
I didn't really come for that too, but I did was to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do this. As you know, my kids all went to school here, graduated from here. We've lived here 35 years, I think now. But also I'm here, I wanted to take the time to say for Valerie, thanks so much. This board is so professional. You all are, but I've been coming here a while with Valerie, and even prior to when I was working with you, she's just so professional. That's what public service is, you know. I mean, sometimes we get labeled bad politicians or whatever the case may be, but I represent other boards. This is one of the most professional boards, and it has been for the whole time, even during hard times, and there were some hard times, as you all know. But anyway, Valerie, thank you for your service. It's been great, and we'll miss you. But I know you'll find other things to do for sure. And thank you for all the kind words. We're looking forward to seeing you in January and beyond. So, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, do you have anything else on that? No. And I think it's, I mean, we talked through a number of bills that will potentially be introduced, and this is the long session, right? Yeah. So you're going to have even more bills introduced, and that's just the bill introduction is just one aspect of it. But I mean, as we've seen over the last handful of years, some of these bills are changing. Then once they're on the floor so fast, and it's hard to understand where to prioritize trying to educate senators because of how many there are, and you don't know which ones are going to be moving. So to have someone on the ground that can give you that information and be, that close to it, I think just helps us better understand what's going on so that we can try to get ahead of it as best we can. Okay, any other comments? Nope. Okay, so we have the motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Witt. Roll call.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, the 2023-24 audit. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Madler, once again. Tonight, we acknowledge the receipt of our 23-24 district audit. I want to thank our auditors once again for all their time and effort put into this year's audit. Once again, I do believe it is a very good audit, trying to put in a new finance system within the district. And our staff, I just want to thank them for all their time and effort within that audit as well. While we are trying to put together that new finance system, has been a lot of heartache down in our into the office, but they did a really good job. We did have one finding this year, an overspending of the bond fund due to the bond tendering offer, the refinance. So when that happens, we just need to amend the budget during the year if we're going to redo that in the future, and that's on me. I should have known that up front. But it's happened before. It's happened to other districts, and we just need to monitor that better in the future, and that's what we put in our audit report. That refinance did allow us to at least save the $557,000, so that's a good thing. Nonetheless, we need to make sure that doesn't happen next year or the year after if we do some refinancing. Other highlights, we finished our last year of stipends last year. So we did 2 years of those, and both times we took down the cash reserve. The cash reserve is now at $28,895,611. This will be closer to $31 million, really, because we're waiting on some reimbursements from the Nebraska Department of Education and the federal grants area and title funds. So that'll kick us back up to about $31 million once those get in. So that's from the 23-24 school year as well. Overall, we spent $147,780,104 in 23-24, which was an increase of about 3.46% from the previous year. When your salary and benefits, tend to be a lot of your spending, 87% usually right in that area. Our salaries and benefits package was about 3.75%, so we feel pretty good about that number of 3.46 overall. If you have any questions as you review the audit and financial statements, please let me know. I will get this put on our website this week as well for the public to look through. And overall, I think the district remains in an excellent fiscal position moving forward, and happy to have any questions that you would have tonight. If you don't have them tonight, I know you got to look through the audit book and let me know if you see anything that pops up.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you and your staff. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that the auditor has all the information that they need. And your staff works very diligently to make sure that that's all there, but they're also doing it during some trying times as we're rolling out a new financial system. And I know that that has been a bit of a bear and continues to be. So I just want to thank you and your staff, because you not only have the audit to get ready for, but you're dealing with the other, and the two together is a pretty heavy load for them. So thank them for me at least.
I will do that. Thank you for that acknowledgement.
I thank you also for all this. I wanted to make sure I understood for the one non-compliance that you have. It looks like down here for the response, it says, whoops, as I break another microphone, that the applicable budget period has expired, therefore no additional action can be taken. So there isn't anything else that needs to be done for this?
Yeah, the amended budget has to be done within the fiscal year.
Okay.
And so the audit comes after the fiscal year. So you can't go back and amend your budget from 23-24. So,
Okay.
That's something that, if we catch in July, we can do it in July.
Absolutely.
For an example.
Yep.
And amend the budget at that particular time. So just something to be more aware of.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure I understood that nothing else needed to be done or
Right.
anything like that
Correct.
with that. Okay, thank you.
We have a motion to accept the audit?
I will make the motion to acknowledge receipt of the audit report for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
I will second.
Okay, we have the motion by Ms. Wood and the second by Mr. Bailey. Any other discussion, questions? Nope, roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item E, the Papillion La Vista South High School Addition Bond Project. Mr. Richards.
Thank you again, Mr. Badler. BCDM, Greg Steeran is here tonight. I think we're still on that. If you want to come up and,
Oh, sorry, what?
we're on
What's
the.
the question?
we're on
Yeah,
the-
we're on the
South.
item E.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can come on up, though. I apologize. We have the action first here. I
Yep,
apologize.
yeah,
The
this is the
GMP.
action. Yep.
Let me get that up here. Oh, there, thank you. I apologize, I didn't have that on my notes, and I will pull up the item here tonight. So, Papillion La Vista South, we did get the guaranteed maximum price from Boyd Jones Construction in the amount of $2,376,354, which is kind of on the higher end of our budget. The team did a great job to try to bring that down a bit, but it's a pretty straightforward project where there's not a lot of value engineering that's able to be done with those. So still within the budget, we think can make work on the overall bond. So we'd recommend that you go ahead and approve that guaranteed maximum price tonight.
I'll make a motion to, one, approve the construction of the Papillion La Vista South High School renovation and addition project as presented with the guaranteed maximum price from Boyd Jones Construction of $2,376,354. And to, two, to delegate authority to and authorize the superintendent of schools or assistant superintendent of business services for the school district to sign, execute, and deliver such construction contracts, sign and approve any change orders, pay the contract price and expenses related to the construction projects, and take all other action necessary to complete any requirements or obligations under the construction projects and contracts.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Fisher. Any questions, comments? Nope. Roll call.
Ms. Wood? Excuse me. Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to section 4, discussion information items. Item A, the PLHS addition bond project overview. Mr. Richards.
And now we're ready for Greg Steeran. I apologize for that.
Nope, no problem.
Mr. Steeran, if you want to take us through the PLHS edition first here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here again tonight. Two exciting projects to run you through. So at the high school, again, the blue is representing a couple of building additions as we're looking at the aerial of the site. One other thing to note as a site item is the expansion of the bleachers adjacent to the turf field. Those will be doubling in size. So as the two blue regions representing two additions, doubling of the bleacher capacity. Also, the parking lot to the north of that athletic PE classroom addition will need to be revised a little bit for traffic flow. One really good thing that happens with that is the handicap parking that's currently in an island kind of out in the parking lot. Those spots will all come up adjacent to the building and really only have to go over one crosswalk, which is into the service drive, a lot safer progression as well as shorter. So that's a good benefit of this project here as well. As we look at the floor plan here, again, a lot of gray, which is no work, a big project in the last bond. So as we're looking here, the green is some kind of light to medium renovation. Again, the blue is the 2 additions. So on the lower level, what we're looking at is the PE classrooms there, get some finish upgrades. The flooring is pretty outdated and kind of a maintenance item down there. Then the green in the auditorium, similar to the scope at South High with some audiovisual upgrades, some house lighting, theatrical lighting, but also replacing the theatrical seating throughout. Also some painting of the catwalk level as we're replacing that house lighting. The blue adjacent to the auditorium there in the lower left-hand corner is a storage addition, about 1,200 square feet, similar to what South High is getting there for the theatrical storage. So as we look at the right side of the plan then, that blue represents a PE classroom addition, as well as expanded vestibule entry. In order to gain access into that addition, we needed to bring that entry point out a bit. We'll see that in a fly-through video here shortly. But that is kind of an all-turfed area, a little bit higher volume, and then the new entry there. That being an entry point to the building, again, it's not the main entrance, but we do have the same security features and things that we're looking at throughout the district at entry points. So as we look at the fly-through video here, again, this is Sampson, a team member on other bond projects, lower volume storage addition here along that alley. You're seeing the fly loft there is that really high volume, and the pool entrance off to the right. So the gymnasium context there is a higher volume. This being the PE classroom, the revised parking lot layout, bringing that entry point out to that competition gymnasium. And then when we come in, you'll see the existing lobby there. We'll take a left into what becomes that new PE classroom space. As I mentioned when we were looking at the plan, that's would be a turfed area, higher volume, a good amount of natural light to that north facade, and just a pretty exciting space.
We did try to keep that space very identical to Papillion La Vista South space over there with their PE classroom, the same height in this one, and then the square footage of the turf space itself. So I want to be really clear and transparent here. South has their weight room inside of that space that they have as well, which the Monarchs have in a different area. So it'll be just the turf space square footage that we'll be putting in Monarch compared to South's, because part of theirs has their weight room in it too. So when you do the square footage of what the actual turf space is at South, that's what you'll see at Monarch. Same with the classroom, the flex classroom at South that we had talked about. We did the same square footage as Monarch had. I would also point out the storage with the fine arts. It's different than South. We're putting it at South as well, but it's the same square footage. I think we had 1,200 square feet for each of the 2 storages for fine arts. But you know, Monarch's is a lot trickier to get that in down behind that alley than South's was, with a little more room there.
So, yeah, absolutely.
On this addition, I know we talked through it with when we were going through the projects for the bond, but this addition is going to be taking up some parking. Can you talk through the parking situation at Papillion La Vista High School, and like if we still feel confident that we're going to have enough stalls for everyone?
Absolutely. Again, switching back to the site plan here, we do probably net lose about 30 spots in this, but with the previous bond project, we gained some additional parking with the reconfiguration at that entry, as well as picking up the spots by the tennis courts. Overall, we have many more than required by code. And talking through with Jason, he's confident that this is plenty of parking.
Okay. And then is that going to close off the north gym entrance, when it is under construction?
We'll need to talk with Sampson about some
Okay.
construction phasing and whatnot, but there are a number of doors along that west side of that
Yeah.
lobby that I'm sure could be used to facilitate maintaining an open gymnasium access and obviously egress.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a project that we're looking for an early spring start on, and having that done at the same time as South, that December of '25 timeframe. So about a year or about 9-month project, it looks like, for us, and we'll confirm those dates with Boyd Jones, but that's what we have right now after talking to him initially.
I just had one question, because in my mind, I can't picture Souths right now, but the windows, those big windows, are they similar to what we have at South? or
Almost an
they-
identical
Okay.
layout. These are north-facing, so they don't have the sunshades that South High does.
That's, that's the difference.
Yep.
is The one is on the one and the other. Okay, sounds good. But the only entrance into this space will be from the vestibule coming down into it?
Yeah, so the main access to that would be through that vestibule. There is a secondary exit-only fire exit into the east alleyway, but the only entrance per se would be from that main entrance.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? No? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the overview. Then we are moving on to item B, the portal bond project overview. Mr. Richards.
See if I can
Mr. Steern, I'll let you handle this one as well, if we can get it up.
try to.
There we go.
All right. So, so Portal Elementary, looking at the site plan here, the yellow indicates some site work and same blue color coding for a couple of additions here. The yellow really is some resurfacing of playgrounds, same that we've been doing at the other elementaries, that poured rubber product, nice ADA surface for the playgrounds. The two blue additions, the one towards the front of the front entrance is a kindergarten addition, and the one at by the gymnasium there is a kitchen addition. So again, the scope of the floor plan here is going to be very similar to what we've done at Rumsey Station in the last bond, what Bell already has, and what Patriot and Walnut Creek will have as we're working through those as the next two projects after this phase. So again, the kindergarten addition by the front entrance really is relocation of the kindergarten that's in the green area just adjacent to that, as the two green areas are taking special education and kindergarten and making that the admin from a secured front entrance standpoint, and then taking the existing admin area and making that into the learning center and a conference room. What you'll see, the green in the upper right-hand corner, saying that's renovation, there's an existing dock into the existing kitchen. As we make that kitchen addition larger and repurpose the existing kitchen into kids club and storage, that dock does need to get kind of reworked. We're keeping a portion of it and reworking the ramp up to it. So again, the kitchen addition, kindergarten addition puts this on par with Rumsey, Patriot, Walnut Creek, Bell, et cetera. As we look at,
This is a project on design bid build.
yes, this one is design bid build, so it'll go out for public bidding here. I believe in January 14th would be the bid date on that. We would anticipate that the schedule on that would be kind of a spring 2025 start, and with construction wrapping up July of 2026. So again, the actual phasing of that, we've got a good idea, but we would need to work with the contractor that's chosen. So, then as we look at a video fly through here of Portal, kind of gymnasium context there, having the kitchen addition on the backside. they've got the green brick on this building. You see the kindergarten addition on the right side as we enter in, adding a sidewalk there for egress. We are adding another window in adjacent to the front entrance so that as we reconfigure the front entrance here and the receptionist at this desk can see directly out line of sight to who's coming up to the front door. And then obviously reconfiguring this whole suite, bringing the nurses' room right up next to that reception desk, and then kind of finishes throughout this admin suite. Again, we're able to bring in the portal green color throughout the entirety of the school now, kind of get that new logo and into the floor, a little bit of excitement for the kids as they're coming in the front entrance. And then we'll walk through into the Learning Center here, which had previously been administration, get some good natural light in here. And throughout the entire building, we are doing LED lighting, the technology upgrades, the new ceilings and finishes, painting throughout like we are at the other elementaries as well. So that's what allows us to bring this green school color theme throughout the building. Then as we walk into the media center here, again, trying to do a little bit something special with the lighting in here to elevate the space, but getting all new finishes throughout there as well. And then as we get down to the kindergarten wing, this corridor brings us to the new kindergarten classroom that we'll walk into here. A little bit different color here, just to help the kids with wayfinding, the kindergartners, hey, this is your wing, your corridor to go to. And again, just trying to get some good natural light into the space. And this would be same LED lighting, et cetera, throughout. So, I don't know if there's any questions for Portal. Oh, sorry, I forgot. On the multi-purpose, because we're doing the kitchen addition, we're cutting some new doors into that wall. So we do have new flooring around the perimeter where that gets cut in, and then getting some green color, that school color again, painted into that multi-purpose space as well. So.
I was just thinking, well, not just, but for the buildings that we're adding on to or changing things that we would have used the bulletproof film on our existing, do we have that planned for all of these as well so that we're not behind? We're doing it as we're...
Yes, that's correct. All of our buildings outside the bond had that done over the summer. And then as we do the projects, we're putting that into the project as well.
And yeah, the films, the access control, cutting in that window, there's fencing being added around playgrounds that I forgot to mention on the site. So all inclusive of all of the same security features that we're trying to upgrade likewise around the district. Yes.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I was pretty certain that was the case, but it's always nice for the public to know that we're continuing on that safety path every time we do some kind of upgrade or addition in the district.
Absolutely.
Continuing on the safety path, I really like all of the natural lighting coming in, but I'm thinking of tornado drills. Where do they go to be away from glass during tornado drills?
Well, every school's a little bit different when it comes to tornado drills. We find the safest area within the buildings to put students. Of course, our newer schools with the new codes that Papillions put out, we're actually, our new elementary will have actual tornado shelter because it's now code. But there are places within the building you try to get to the interior hallways, restroom areas typically, or where we put kids for tornadoes.
Any other questions, comments? No? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Richards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, moving on to item C, State of the Schools Report. Ms. Siri.
All right, good evening, Board of Education. Welcome to the most wonderful time of the year. It's your annual report on education, and I'm going to have Angie Wright, Director of Assessment. She's going to present with me tonight, as she knows way more than I will ever know on student assessment. So we're going to co-present this. Just before we dive in, I want to remind you that this is for the 2023-24 school year. So this is last year's information. And part of the reason that we present it this time of year is because they take all of the state assessment information. The state processes it, validates it, makes sure it's accurate, and then that's part of our AQuest process that we're going to talk to you about tonight. And that information then is released back to us in the district in October, typically. Excuse me, and then it was made public, I believe, Thanksgiving's Day.
Day before, yeah.
Day before. So, oh yeah, that was PD Palooza. We were thinking about other things, but yes. So we're here to talk about last year's information. So before we get into the thick of it, just some key takeaways with all of the information we're going to share with you tonight. These are big, broad statements, but we continue to perform above the state and national averages. Our graduation rate remains strong thanks to all the work of our fine principals and teachers in our buildings that are helping our students stay on track. Our MAP assessment now, we have given that for right around 8 years total, and it continues to provide great information for our teachers in our classroom, as well as district-wide information. And of course, we continue to have high expectations, and we're constantly looking for places to improve and grow as a district so that we can serve our kids better tomorrow than we did today. And obviously, as we're getting ready to go into our continuous improvement visit, we are constantly seeking to improve and with a sense of urgency as we know it impacts our students' educational journeys. So with that being said, we're going to start out with just some demographic data to begin with. Again, last year's information. This actually comes from a date. It is the last Friday in September, or the October 1st deadline is what we talk about it. The state of Nebraska does that in every school district. So it's kind of like they're taking a dipstick and dipping in and saying, what does your student population look like? And so this was last October's information. You can see there our total student enrollment includes preschool. And then you have some demographic information. A couple of things that I'm going to draw your attention to. The first one is you will notice, we're going to give you some trend data so that you can see some things. We're watching our high ability learner percent. That has gone down in numbers since COVID and continues. So we're doing kind of a deep dive into our criteria for qualification. And then our other one is our free and reduced numbers are on a trajectory upward as well. And so we're watching that just to ensure that we can provide all the support resources to those families as that number also increases. So here's a 3-year trend so that you can kind of see our enrollment, special education. You can see is slightly down from last year. And then the high ability number, that's that number we're watching as it has declined in the total number of students qualifying. Our EL number has gone up slightly. And then the free and reduced number, as I pointed out earlier, is also increased. With that being said, Angie's going to talk to you a little bit about the student achievement. This is NSCAS, which is our state test, and she's going to walk you through how our students performed last year.
Good evening. This is NSCAS Language Arts. So all students in grades 3 through 8 take the NSCAS test in English Language Arts and in math. This is the Language Arts graph. A couple of things to note when you look at these graphs. The brighter, darker bar there, that's Papillion-La Vista Community Schools performance. And then the lighter shade of colors next to each, that is the overall performance of the state, so that you have a little bit of context about how our students in Papillion-La Vista Community Schools performed compared to the students across the state. The state divides students into 3 performance categories: advanced, on track, and developing. Students who are performing in the blue and green, or advanced and on track, are considered mastering, and that is mastery towards the state standards. So as you can see, and if you look at this, I kind of like to look at the bottom of the green to look and say, are Papillion La Vista Community Schools students performing as well as or better than the students across the state? And as you look at these graphs, we are performing better than that. So it's nice to have context when you look at data. In addition to that, I think it's always important to look at, we also have we have those percentages of our advanced students are greater than that across the state. So we're not barely making it, but our students are performing well. That's ELA. The next graph, this is mathematics. Similar trends here. As a note for math, NSCAS math, the cut scores were reset this summer. So these are different criteria than when we talked about this last year. They changed just slightly, but they are a little bit different criteria, but they're divided in the same way. And again, PLCS students are performing well as compared to their peers across the state. And the last one is science. Here you'll see results from just 5th and 8th grade, because the science test is only administered in grades 5 and 8. And you can see again that Papillion La Vista Community Schools students are performing stronger than those across the state of Nebraska. So that we are pleased with this performance. We're always looking at this data to help us understand, are students making progress towards the standards? Is our curriculum working? How can we better and continue to support students in their learning process? So this is one piece of data that we look at.
And just for information, the students participate in this test in March. It does take us several weeks to get that. The window runs from March to early April, including makeup.
Thanks, Shereen. This is ACT trend. And as you look at this graph, if you're having a hard time reading it, don't worry. There's another graph coming that makes it a little easier. I display this because I wanted you to see that there are actually 5 lines here. It's two Papillion La Vista Community Schools, our 3rd-year cohort, more generally called juniors, but not all juniors by credits are in the 3rd-year cohort. And then our graduate report. And then there's also the Nebraska 3rd-year cohort, Nebraska graduates, and then graduates across the nation. So this is to show you that on the 1 to 36 scale for ACT, all of those lines are pretty tight and close together. But will you click, Shireen? This graph makes it look like there's a huge trend down, but the truncated range there from 18 to 22, I did that so you could actually read the numbers on the graph. So there's not a huge trajectory down. That's just like 1 point on all of those. Papillion La Vista Community Schools are represented in the gray line, the top gray line there. That's the performance of our graduates on their average composite score. And then the gold line there is our 3rd-year cohort scores. Just to note the difference between the graduate report and the 3rd-year cohort, the graduate report reports all the latest score for all of our graduates. Students can take the ACT more than one time. For the state test, for that gold line, that is the opportunity that they had when we administered it school-wide on ACT Day, as I lovingly call it, ACT Day for our juniors. So that is that one opportunity that they take in April of their junior year. For context, the other lines represent the other groups, and we are proud to say that our students are performing well as compared to those other groups.
And of course, the break in the gold line and the red line represents there was no administration of the state test during COVID. So that's why you have that break there.
Yes. We also look at ACT scores from the vantage point of the state test. So this is the percent of students who mastered according to the expectations of the state of Nebraska. PLCS is on the top, the state of Nebraska on the bottom, and the gray bar represents last year, but I gave you the trend over time. The ELA test includes, it takes all the scores from English, reading, and the writing assessment and puts them together into one score, and then that's the percent of students who demonstrated, or met the expectations according to our state. And then math and science are those two standalone tests. And again, we're performing well as compared to peers across the state.
And that first column represents the year.
I believe, Ms. Siri, before we move on to map growth, you can keep me honest here, but there are approximate, so not only does Papillion La Vista, do our students outperform the state outperforms the country. I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips, but the last time I looked at the data, I believe there are approximately 15 states in the union that require ACT for all, meaning 35 approximately in the states in the union. It is optional. I believe of those approximately 15 states in the union that require the ACT, Nebraska is consistently in the top 3. We may even be number 2. So we are doing better than the state, and the state as a whole is doing far better, not better, far better than the country.
Yes, and I think it's also good to point out too, we've had a lot of conversations because there is a slight decline, not significant, but I think one of the considerations that we have talked a lot about is since COVID, the ACT, a lot of colleges no longer require it for entrance. So students are not taking it as many times as typical in the past. So we have far more students that they're a one-time and out. And so we've noticed that as well. That could change moving forward in the future, but we do know just the retest factor alone often gives students an increase of at least 1 point on the composite score. And so that 1 to 2 point difference, we're noticing part of that could be that reason, but we are taking a deeper dive into each area to make sure that we're giving students what they need.
I'm sorry, before you go further with that, do you think, you mentioned, 15 states require it? Do you think that number will go down since it seems more and more colleges are not requiring it? Or is it something that, I guess, maybe that Nebraska would continue requiring that ACT? Is it a good measure?
I think that's a good question, Skip. I think we are lucky in our state. I feel that we are lucky, this is Shireen's opinion, that because assessments at the high school level are difficult, and even the ACT was really developed as a college entrance exam, not an end of high school performance assessment tool, but it benefits our students. Its main competitor obviously is the SAT, but because the Midwest really is driven more on the ACT side, I don't see our state typically moving away from that. Now, we do have to go out the state of Nebraska does have to go out for an RFP every so many years, and that recently was just done with NSCAS, our tests for 3 through 8. ACT will be next, but I don't see it changing. I think it would be unlikely.
And there is a state law that requires the high school test to be a college entrance exam right now.
Yeah.
So that would have to change also if we went away from one of those two, ACT or SAT.
I guess what I was wondering if there's a chance that it would go away from that based on what we're seeing, in the college level, like you said, a college entrance exam, and more colleges are saying don't really need that. So that's why I was wondering, but okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
On the ACT, we've heard some rumblings that because so many colleges don't require it anymore, we make students take it. Do they really give it their 100% attention, or is it just, I got to get this done, so I'll go get it done? We've heard several say, maybe that's part of the reason for some of the drop, is that it's not as important to them as it used to be. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think as I visit with our high school leaders, I think they feel that a little bit, and I think it's harder to motivate students to do their best. They do a lot of things to try to prep them, talk about how important the information is to them. We do administer pre-ACT at the sophomore level as well, try to utilize that information to show its relevance with our students. I will tell you that one of the rumblings, and Angie, you can jump in here, that is happening across our state with curriculum and assessment directors is the writing piece adds quite a bit of time to the overall amount of time the assessment takes. And it's a 4-hour commitment that students have to do. And we get information, but then the conversation is, very few institutions require the writing. They often don't take the writing again, and it just adds to make that test so long, it feels long for the kids. And so there has been some conversation around that. Are there better ways to get a measurement of students' writing that could be utilized that would reduce the time that it's taking? So.
MAP growth, as Shireen said, that's an assessment that was phased in starting in the 16-17 school year. Just to remind you, MAP growth is an adaptive assessment, so students take that assessment starting in kindergarten all the way through 9th grade. And it's adaptive in the sense that when students answer a question, if they get it right, the next question's a little bit harder, and if they get it incorrect, the next question's a little bit easier. So the assessment is looking for kind of that sweet spot of where are students successful and where are they performing, so that teachers then from this assessment get information that they can use instructionally to help best utilize the time at school. So all students get Tier 1 core instruction of the grade level content, but then they can use this to help intervene or enrich for students who are at varying levels. And this is a piece of information teachers find really valuable. The tested areas are reading and math. Students in grades K through 3 take reading and math in fall, winter, and spring. Grades 4 through 9 administer the assessment in fall and winter, and spring is optional, mainly because spring is also NSCAS testing. So to be mindful of the time that students are spending taking the assessments. The results you're going to look at are from the fall of 2024. When we look at the results, we always look at the fall results because all students participated in that administration. If we looked at spring, it would be a partial sample for some of our grade levels. So that's why we're showing fall data instead of spring today. And I like to think about the fall data from 1st through 9th grade is really the ability to look at how did the previous year go, and then the kindergarten data is how are our students coming in prepared. Another note, LB 1081, which is the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act, the reading bill, based on a change of rules with that, the assessment, we're also now administering MAP reading fluency in grades K through 2, and so that we can get a full picture of our readers.
And that's a quick hitter test.
Yes.
That one's
It takes about 20 minutes to administer. So it's short. Students are reading into the computer, and the computer is analyzing their reading, or in K1, they're answering questions about letters and sounds and things like that. It's actually, the teachers have reported that kids see it as more like a game than a test. So they're pretty engaged in it, which is fun. These are the results from fall 24, so this fall, for MAP reading. These are quintiles, so this is broken up into 5 areas from, and it's by percentiles. So think of the percentile when you go to the doctor and they tell you your baby is in the 89th percentile or the 26th percentile, same type of score. So thinking about that normal curve. If I had the national norm group bar here, it would have 20% of students in each of those 5 categories. So knowing that is helpful because you can look at it from the top, from the highs, the blues and the greens and the yellows, which are the higher percentiles. And if you have more than 20% in like that top bar, which is the 80th to the 99th percentile, those are our students who are performing the strongest. And as you can see in all of the grade levels, almost all of the grade levels were at 20% or higher in that top group. So we want to outperform that national sample. We want our students to be performing strong, and they are. And then you can kind of look across the green, a lot of those bars are larger. So these are our reading scores. I think it's important to note, if you're noticing the second grade bar and thinking, that looks really different than some of those other ones, I think it's important to note that in second grade is when students start independently reading the assessment. So in K1, they're listening to the reading passages and answering questions. It also reads all the questions for them. In second grade, they begin reading the test completely independently. So that is a big change in how the assessment is administered. And I always think it's interesting on this second grade that we have a high percentage of our students in the top 2 quintiles, and then that middle, that yellow quintile, which is kind of in that average range, is much smaller. And I think that's because when we have students coming in from first grade, some of them come in as really strong readers, and some of them are still building those skills. That impact of reading the assessment independently is where that comes from, and then you start to see kind of those lower quintiles shrinking down again as they get into the upper levels. The next one is math. Same idea on the graph. It's the same graph, just different subject area, and again, you can see a pretty consistent performance of our students. We have 8 grades that are at or below 10% in that lowest quintile, which is good news. We want to make sure that we are responding to students' needs from this data, and teachers are doing a great job with that. Questions about the map data before we move on?
Yeah, one question for me, because this is just a snapshot for those grades for this fall.
Yes.
Or do you track the grades through the years separately? Or like, last year, the 5th grade, obviously they were 4th graders last year, and how each grade is changing as they progress through.
So we keep cohort data as well, and it's available behind our staff sign-in page, so that our staff can go see it. But yes, we are monitoring classes, watching, looking for trends between those classes, but then also the individual student groups as they go through as well.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. The next thing then, this is AQuest, and you may recall this is Nebraska's Accountability for a Quality Education System today and tomorrow. So this is NDE's formula that gives a district that ranking. You perhaps saw the article in the Omaha World Herald that kind of talked about the districts and where they performed. These are the tenets or the components of the formula that is used to get to that calculation. You can see the largest there is the NSCAS. That's the state test that Angie just went through the information. That's a large component of how our students perform in the English language arts math area as well as science. They look at it 2 ways: the number of students that participate, which thanks to our teachers and their hard work, that number is always very good for us, and then the number of students that are proficient on the state standards. The next quadrant, you can see there, focuses really on chronic absenteeism, and that's an improvement component. So is progress towards English language for our EL learners. Last month, we had a presentation about EL, and Leah Peach talked about the ELPA. That is measured there. And then the bottom 2 are really transitions, where they're talking about your graduation rate. And then the last one is that student achievement and growth, where they're really looking at improvement. I do think it's good to note that for this past school year, they also did collect discipline data that is outlined in the state statute to be included, but it is currently not part of the formula. They are still trying to clean that up and get it consistent and figure out a way to utilize that information within this formula. Knowing those 4 quadrants, our district again was rated great. That is where we were last year, and you can see each of our schools also get a particular classification as well. And then we also receive designations, federal, based on our student subgroups. So how are our students in special education performing? All of that information then is shared out with the building as well as the district. Next is graduation rates. You can see on in the column there on the far left is the year, the graduation rate, the number of graduates that there were, and then the graduation rate for us as Papillion La Vista is found in the gold, and in the white is the state of Nebraska. You can see we're pretty consistent, and we did see a slight increase, which I really have to give kudos to our educators, because to see that number sustain and be consistent through all of the challenges through the pandemic and having students miss a quarter of their career and not see that number dip speaks a lot to the hard work of the educators. Just kind of as a reminder, in July, we updated policy 5503 with our graduation requirements. This is the language right from the course registration guide. You can also find this language in that board policy. We did increase the number of credits to 46, and that was to address the requirement of the state statute 79-729 that requires personal finance. I share that with you because now part of this report will include the number of students participating in personal finance as outlined in the law, in case you were on the edge of your seat. I will tell you we had personal finance as a course prior, but now it is a requirement for all of our students. We did align and make sure that we met the guidance that was put out by NDE. We had already aligned it to the standards, but we wanted to make sure that we met the guidance. We do have offerings in both in-person and online. That's to help get students through that course and get them the information they need. And then actually the actual graduation requirement doesn't start until 2028, but students can start to obtain that credit anytime. We really prefer sophomore year up and above, but we do have some freshmen that get it as well. So that 696 is multiple grade levels, but that obviously is an increase as we're making sure that all of our students get it. We're just trying to get into that habit. The last part that I wanted to share with you is the advanced placement, and this year I presented it to you a little bit different because last year you guys had great questions about courses. So we did break it down by the number of students by course so that you can kind of see. Advanced placement research will show, this is one of the key indicators of how successful a student will be at college. This experience gives them an opportunity to have college-level rigorous coursework. It also gives them an opportunity to take a test that is very similar to what they'll take in college, and they can earn dual credit for it. We encourage that mainly, honestly, just because of the practice and the opportunity to have that experience while they still have the support of high school. So we've seen an increase in this. Both of our high schools have taken this on and worked very diligently as we've tried to increase rigor and encourage our students to participate in AP coursework. Access Your Future, this includes our academies, our internships, and our certifications. We had 815 students participate in one of those programs. We had a couple of students that did participate in more than one, but it's a very small number. You can see that our workplace learning experience, that's a total number of hours, and I did put documented. That sometimes has to do with certification or the program itself. Some of our academies don't have documented hours, and that's not in here. An example of that would be like our Media Academy, where our students are participating with streaming, all kinds of programs and so on. That's not a record keeping that we do. It's not required for any type of certification. Those hours would not be in that number. And then you'll see there the certifications that are earned by our students while they're still in high school. CPR, we had 152. CNA, that's the nursing, is 54. CMA is the medical, 48. And then OSHA, every Construction 2 student goes through that program as part of Project Lead the Way. And as you know, we're a goal-driven district, and so these are our district overall broad goals for our district for this school year based on the information that you just saw tonight. Obviously, we are continuing to work on rigor as part of our strategic plan, encouraging the AP testing. We've evaluated the courses as we bring them into the curriculum cycle. The high schools have done a great job encouraging students to take as many courses as they can while they're in high school and free. And then obviously we're always focusing on our essential core practices. We have the 6 essential core practices, and that's to ensure that we give our students the most academic enriched opportunity we can provide as a school district. So what can you expect moving forward? We'll continue to use multiple data points to evaluate academic achievement. What you saw here tonight is our standardized test information. It is utilized differently depending upon if it's MAP or the state test. But we also have our current summative assessments, our classroom information. There's multiple other data points that we have as well, including like our HAL testing, our advanced math placement testing, our early childhood, the GOLD in preschool, and so on. We'll continue with MAP and ACT. We're monitoring chronic absenteeism. Student Services is really taking that on with the principals, and we're trying to really encourage. It's shockingly enough, students do better when they come to school. And then AQuest classifications, we'll continue to monitor those. We're watching those subgroups that maybe aren't performing where we'd like to see them and what we need to do to support them. And then we're continuing to implement Otis, that data warehouse, to get that information in teachers' hands more easily ready and available to them. And then obviously rigor with the strategic plan. And with that, that concludes the academic education report.
I really
Questions?
appreciate you sharing multiple data points with us, and I think it's really important that we as a board and as the community understand that those data points are used differently, and that when we look at state testing and those results, that's kind of that big picture overview where MAP helps us really look at kids and really impact instruction, so I appreciate that a lot. It appeared to me that math, especially in elementary, maybe is an area where kids are not achieving at as high of a level. Am I right in that?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, and as we're bringing it back into the curriculum cycle, we're really looking at what we need to do to build up that core curriculum to get that stronger so that our students have a really strong, solid, consistent foundation.
I wondered if we're still seeing the effects of COVID, and that seemed to be a national trend, and that math was hit hard, and so we're still working through that. And
I would agree with that, Lisa. I would also tell you, looking at our data, math has taken longer to recover from.
I also wondered a little bit about the free and reduced numbers. That's a significant, almost a 10-point increase over the last couple of years. Now, do you see that growth occurring are our Title I buildings growing, getting more, or is it spreading across the district where we would have potentially more schools that might be qualifying for Title I services?
Great question. So the answer is yes and yes. We are seeing that number spread. We're also seeing an increase in our title buildings. That is based on an average across the district. So that's kind of interesting because if you think about where the growth is in our district, it's a different socioeconomic class, but yet we're still seeing a significant gain there in the total number of percent of students. We are seeing it in some additional buildings, and we have investigated what does that look like if we need to increase our title status. And so we're watching that very closely in one building specifically and in another one with its overall number. Dr. Rickley asked us to look into that about 2 months ago, I think it was.
I know there's always been a couple that have always been right there on the edge, and so, yeah.
Yeah, and title status also gives more resources to those buildings, including federal dollars to help support those students. So it's important that we watch it.
Can you talk through the importance of diving into the demographic data or the various breakouts that the systems and the different tests give you the ability to break the data out into, and why it is just difficult to compare individual schools because of the demographics?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we really take a deeper dive into that because we want to ensure that our students are having equitable opportunities to be successful in our district, and that there is not something that we are doing that would stifle a specific subgroup. For example, we've really looked at special education as that number's grown. The philosophy of the district with inclusion is so important. But do we have the right interventions? Do we have the supports for those students? Because those things also change over time. And sometimes we do find discrepancies, and then we start to have conversations about why is that? Is there something that a building's doing with their schedule that perhaps is serving those students better or different? Is there an area that maybe support is off a little bit? I know we've had a lot of conversations about students' opportunity to be in the general ed classroom is so important because they need to have the opportunity to learn it. So what does that look like, and is that consistent? So yes, we are constantly watching that. We also watch the demographic of everything from, male versus female. Do we see discrepancies in our students when they're learning to read? Is it because we're not engaging, or perhaps we're misdirecting? So yeah, we're constantly looking at that, and that's why the Department of Education has also put it as a priority as they look at those subgroups and the proficiency and making sure that students are performing and having equitable opportunities across all areas. So,
And are we able to track the benefits in our data on the early childhood program that we have, like getting to the students before kindergarten and tracking them against, like, are we able to cohort them?
yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to let Angie, I'll give you a minute here to think, because Angie led the data piece for the early childhood program review. It's a great question. It is a little bit hard to measure, if I'm being honest. Like, we can look at how our students perform academically once they get in school and they've participated in our program, and what does that look like, and so on. The things that are hard are the things that maybe don't have a number assigned to it. So for example, we looked at full day and half day preschool, and what did that look like? Well, the things that you can't see in that number is sometimes full day preschool allows families to access preschool that if it's half day, they can't. That's not necessarily found in that number. So there are other things that we try to consider. There's also building the relationship with families before a student starts school that is established through those programs. That's not always found in that number as well. So we tried to be cognizant of that. But Angie really did a good job of trying to put that data together and take that team through that.
When we looked at the so we did an early childhood program review, and we looked at MAP achievement data of our students who were in preschool and how did they achieve. We compared that to students who were not in our preschool program. The tricky part is the students who were not in our program, it doesn't mean they didn't have early childhood of some sort in the community, or there's lots of options for families. And so we didn't have a group of had early childhood and didn't have early childhood. So that's not found in the number either. So it's tricky. What I can say, to me, the most telling number as we looked at that MAP growth data and MAP reading fluency, how our kindergartners come in prepared. What I will tell you is that our preschool program serves a variety of students with IEPs, we have peer models, we have at-risk students. So the demographics of the students we serve in our preschool program is different than our overall general population, but our students who we serve in our preschool program and the students who are served in other ways in our community were equally prepared when they came into kindergarten. And I feel like that's really good news, because we have some students who have pretty significant needs in our preschool, and they are prepared for school based on the measurements of MAP growth and MAP reading fluency.
Yeah, so to answer your question, when we can get our hands on them, it helps them to be better prepared.
Yes.
Perfect. And then lastly, I know you talked about the special education subgroup. Any other subgroup or grades as you're diving in to the data, specifically where you have like your, top couple areas that we want to, obviously we want them all to improve, and we're going to try to do that. But where would the extra focus be if we needed to?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Marcus. And consistently across the district, no. The answer would be no. We did have some designations in specific buildings where a subgroup might have been earmarked, but then it wasn't in another area. Sometimes it's a numbers game because it's a percent, if I'm being honest, like the number of students. The other part that's hard with that is it's also, it depends on how the student or the family self-discloses that demographic too. That can be different. But there are a couple that we're watching as we looked at that. That is probably the one part that is hard when you get this data a year behind. Because, for example, I think it was 2 years ago, we had an 8th grade group that we had a subgroup. Well, they were already in the high school, and but we did try to go back to make sure that there wasn't anything that we needed to be aware of or changes that needed to be done to support them. But that is hard a little bit. So, but as a district, no, there's some areas we could do better, and we know that, and so we're looking at that, but no.
You mentioned the drop with the high-ability learners. What are your thoughts about that? Are we testing kids differently or looking at identifying them differently, or what are you thinking?
In full honesty, Lisa, I don't know. We're really diving into it and looking. We haven't changed the testing. We haven't changed the criteria there. Our screener is the same. But we are looking into that. I mean, some of those pieces were impacted by COVID, obviously, but we're past that, and we're seeing positive results. And so I think we have a lot of questions in our mind as to why that number is not going the direction we would anticipate it to be. We plan to do a program review of that with our HAL teachers. It's just on the docket. But the qualification piece we're trying to dive into right now because we feel like we can't wait.
Any other questions, comments? No? Well, thank you for putting the data together and presenting it and answering all of our questions on it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Angie.
Okay, moving on to section 5, future board calendar. Tomorrow, December 10th, 2024, liaison lunch at Papillion La Vista South High School at 12:30 with Ms. Fisher. December 23rd through January 3rd, no school for students or staff. Hope everyone enjoys their winter break. January 6th, 2025, no school for student. It was a staff development day. January 9th, 2025, liaison lunch at Carriage Hill at 11:30 with Ms. Witt. And January 13th, 2025, our next Board of Education meeting at 6 p.m. here at Central Office. Seeing no further business in front of the board, I adjourn the meeting at 7:47. Thank you.